Alright, here we are another night where there's nowhere to go, nothing to do, and no one to look up to. All the great podcast themes have been turned into podcast theme parks, and I don't know about you, but...
Hello, baby, I've been waiting for a Christian Slater podcast.
Welcome back to the Christian Slater Monitor. I'm Oswald Ramirez. You can call me Ozzy, and I'm here with...
Flew in from Oklahoma City, and boy, my arm's tired. Elston, Gunn. Oz, thanks so much for having me on the show this week.
It's really a pleasure to have you in my home. Today we're going to be talking about 1993's major motion picture event, True Romance. What was your first memory of the movie True Romance? When did you encounter this movie?
It was during the VHS days, probably a year or two after it came out on tape. So the mid-90s, later 90s. I think I'd seen Pulp Fiction and I'd seen Reservoir Dogs by then. So I was curious to see what else this young genius could do.
I was a big Christian Slater fan, and I think that around the same time they started, I didn't know this movie existed when it came out at theaters, but when by the time it was, I saw a poster for it outside 7-Eleven as coming to VHS, and it also, I think Val Kilmer got third billing or something, and Tombstone had already come out. And I'd, of course, seen that. And so I was super psyched on this movie, True Romance. And I guess something happened between the release of True Romance and the release of Pulp Fiction where I became desensitized to violence, because I rented True Romance. And at some point I rented Reservoir Dogs too, and I couldn't finish either movie. They were both way too violent for me.
Wow.
I ended up returning the tapes unfinished to the VHS store. But then I loved Pulp Fiction and went back and rented both movies and liked them when I watched them again. So I guess I just aged just enough in that time that I was okay with that kind of thing.
Sure, yeah. I mean, because you're right. It is. Looking back at True Romance, it's far more, I think, violent than Pulp Fiction ever was.
Yeah, I guess that's a thing about the movie that Tarantino says about the movie is that he thinks that the movie, both that and Reservoir Dogs, did poorly at the box office in America because every review started with saying, hey, this is really violent, and Pulp Fiction's didn't. And so he didn't think Pulp Fiction was going to be a big hit because of the first two. But then he's like, yeah, maybe it's because they just told everyone, hey, this is some really violent stuff, and it scared people away. He said, I like violence, and it might have scared me away.
True, very true. But that's a good point. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, he was like, Pulp Fiction's violent, but I guess it had enough other things going on that people just didn't start every review with a one paragraph disclaimer like, hey, this is not for the squeamish.
Sure, for sure.
Also, you know who's on? I was just saying off camera that I've been watching, that I had watched all of Bosch. Mark Ralston from Hard Rain shows up on Bosch, and not in any of the seasons does he rape anyone, but I guess they've given Bosch now a spin-off, a new Netflix show where he's a private eye, and maybe Mark Ralston will be back and rape some folks.
Maybe so. We'll see.
Did you ever watch The Last Detail?
Never did.
Okay.
Never did.
I found out my dad does not like that movie, so take that. And also,
that's hilarious.
Last time we forgot to mention that Hard Rain was directed by a man named Mark Salomon, but we should have been calling him Mark Salmon the whole movie because of all the water. We really messed up on that.
We really missed a good dad joke in there, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So Tarantino writes this script. It's at about the same time. His first script, if memory serves me, first script he ever completed.
Yes, that is correct.
Yes. Yeah, and it was sort of like his fantasy because he was a young guy, single, trying to make it in the business. And so I've heard him say it's probably his most autobiographical movie / fantasy anything that he's ever written.
Yeah, and you can see when you watch it, I guess, or if you read the script or watch what they call it, there's something out there called the Tarantino Cut that you can find online through certain channels, and I watched this, and there's a real specificity to places and things that feels like places he knows. It'll give you actual where things are in Detroit a little more and stuff, which I guess he grew up a lot in Detroit. Then they go around Hollywood and there's a little more specificity. Some things are fictionalized in the movie and stuff and not done in the script. But yeah, I think that it really was pretty autobiographical, with the exception of there was no one like Alabama Worley in his life. I'm imagining the comic book store was a stand-in for the video store, and but I think he was living the Dick Ritchie lifestyle. He says says on the commentary that getting a role on T.J. Hooker would have been as much a fantasy or more than him having a girlfriend like Alabama at the time.
I remember that. That's right. I forgot about that. That's awesome.
And we'll
yeah,
talk
because like he wrote Alabama is like that's the kind of girl that he wanted when he was for age 25 when he wrote the script.
Well, I think also he said maybe not because he says he's more into intellectual girls and Alabama's more emotionally driven.
Very true. Very true. Very true.
But like the things, there'll be a lot of mentioning of this throughout of the things that are different from his script because his script is not in chronological order. And of course, well, we'll get into the spoiler later. It has a different ending also is the other major departure. And, the references that are made in the film, some of them are changed and dates are changed because he finished the script or he wrote the script in 1986, not 1990s.
Sure, yeah, they kind of punched up a little bit to kind of...
But some things they didn't. Like some things that they are left the same. But yeah, like for example, this isn't much of a spoiler, but Christopher Walken says he hasn't killed anybody since 1984. In the script, it's 1974.
Gotcha.
That might be the biggest difference.
Does this movie have apps? The greatest cast ever assembled?
It's crazy. Like almost every single person in this movie, down to tiny roles, is somewhat like either that guy who you recognize or is famous. It may be like it's like some of those Michael Mann movies, like Public Enemies and The Insider and Heat, have crazy casts. But this movie may be like the most, and some of the Oliver Stone movies like Nixon and JFK, but this may be, you have raised a good point there, this is a crazy cast. A lot of dead people in the cast.
Yeah. I was looking at it again this morning and it was like, I'm just going to run down, I'm just going to play the hits really quick.
Go for it.
See, Christian Slater, Patricia Arquette, Dennis Hopper, Al Kilmer, Gary Oldman, Pitt, Christopher Walken, Bronson, his last name, Cho, Samuel L. Jackson, Michael Rappaport, Saul Rubinek, the great and powerful Sal Rubinek, James Gandolfini, rest in peace, Argo, Chris Penn, Tom Sizemore.
And you get Ed Lauter. You've got Frank Adonis from like every mob movie. Nowadays, probably more of a that guy than then. Paul Ben Victor, who is Kevin Corrigan. They're the guy he talks to about Elvis and hamburger at the hamburger stand is like a guy named like Jeremy Somerhalder or something like that was probably more recognizable then than now, unfortunately for him. But he's like a Chris Penn. I just saw him in The Grifters as like next to Chris Penn and John Cusack, but he's also next to Chris Penn and John Cusack and Say Anything. That lady Conchata Ferrell that runs the audition for Dick Ritchie is kind of like a face. Marty, the black dude, is the guy from Coming to America, who is the bodyguard of James Earl Jones and stuff in those Palace pictures or whatever. He's like
crazy.
There are more even. Like I feel like that might be it actually. Oh, Michael Beach is like the black cop.
Yeah.
And I forget the actor's name, but the guy that plays Boris, the blonde-haired bodyguard of Saul Rubinek, is Little John from Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Rick Alan Kramer.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
But it's crazy. And even the guy who plays Floyd D, this is the odd movie that has two characters with the same name, but you don't get them confused, two Floyds. He's pops up in like Michael Mann movies and has had a long career on TV and stuff, but he's maybe one of the least recognizable people in this movie.
Lawrence Mason is Floyd D.
To the two Floyds.
To the two Floyds, which was the original title for this movie. It wasn't at all. Do you think, get the script, and at this point, an unknown, correct me if I'm wrong, he presents these two scripts. He goes, I'm going to sell one, I'm going to make the other. Scott picked True Romance, and then he took Res Dogs and made it, correct?
I guess something like that. I guess originally the movie was going to be directed. I think at first he tried to get True Romance going as something to direct himself, and that wasn't going. And then I think he sold it to some company that the guy who directed Maniac Cop was going to make a movie of it. And then after that, somehow he got hooked in with Tony Scott, and they had to get they had to wrest the rights away or something from, so yeah, but it is a thing where maybe one of those he was going to direct himself, and he ended up, and Tony Scott wanted to do True Romance. No, I think the thing is that Reservoir Dogs got put together before True Romance got fully going with Tony Scott. And so they offered it back to Tarantino to direct himself. And he was like, no, I wrote that as maybe a thing to direct first. And in Reservoir Dogs, I'm going to direct first. And so I want to move on and have you direct that.
Which is pretty interesting that both those were, like kind of 1 and 2.
Well, there was also, you got to figure Natural Born Killers was probably written between the two.
True. That's true. But even bigger, it's even a bigger movie. Like True Romance is a pretty big movie. Natural Born Killers is a pretty big movie. Reservoir Dogs is just very much contained.
Yes.
Very, very small movie.
You wonder how he planned to do True Romance as a low budget movie, but I guess if you don't have all those actors and all the atmosphere, you're seeing the maximum budget version of True Romance in this movie. I kept thinking about this, just how much visual energy and lighting is going on and extra things that, these would not be in the low budget Maniac Cop or Tarantino version of True Romance. Things like just constant aquariums, trains. The roller coaster is not in the script. They go to the zoo, and there's just every little moment of the movie, there's something extra going on somewhere, just to add visual energy to this talky movie.
It's the great Tony Scott, man.
Is this your favorite Tony Scott movie? What are your favorite Tony Scotts?
This one obviously has to be up there. Crimson Tide has to be up there. But then, there again, Tarantino punched that one up, punched that script up, because he made it after True Romance, and he was he gave it to Tarantino to kind of spruce up a little bit. But
you get some Silver Surfer talk in there that I'm imagining.
Exactly.
That's probably.
There's that. I guess Top Gun's just fun.
Oh yeah.
Chewy bubble gum, but those the two that I return to the most, certainly. Enemy of the State's really fun because it's sort of like the unofficial sequel to The Conversation.
Oh, yeah. They even
cool
use that old picture from The Conversation as the picture of Gene Hackman in it, right? This is my favorite Tony Scott movie, and probably my favorite Christian Slater movie as well, I would say. What do you think?
Can't argue.
Yeah, these are probably my top on both. And flop at the box office. Probably really hurt Christian Slater's career, I would imagine, because this is the biggest movie he'd be the lead of at that point. It did not do well.
It had a budget of $12.5 million, and it only earned $12.3 million.
Oh, I guess it's lower budget than Mobsters. $12.5 million. Wow, that's only $5 million more than Pulp Fiction, right? That cost like 7 or 8.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to think they made this movie with all these people in it for $12.5 million.
Yeah, just really shows that I guess they already owned all those lights and things and cameras they didn't have to pay for again in the studio.
Sure, absolutely.
This is produced by, we see at the opening credits, it's produced by James G. Robinson as the executive producer, who was, I guess, I read Paul Schrader's the Schrader on Schrader book, and Paul Schrader says James G. Robinson's a cool guy that's like the rich money guy behind Morgan's Creek at that point, and he just really loves movies, and he'll sometimes gamble on stuff that he just wants to see, or he just likes somebody. He gave Schrader the directing job on Exorcist Dominion, and Paul Schrader's record at that point should not have suggested that he should be given a movie of that budget, but James G. Robinson was just no, I like Paul Schrader movies. I'll give him the job. And that didn't go so well.
Hired. Hire Schrader. That's fantastic. Yeah, you have to admire people like that have the funding to be able to pay for movies like that just they want to see, that maybe wouldn't have had funding otherwise.
He paid for all the insanity of Last of the Mohicans. That's a movie that feels like it has an insane budget compared to what somebody else might do.
A lot of that was probably the 3 years that they had to pay for Daniel Day-Lewis to just go live in the woods.
Yeah, some of those stories about Daniel Day-Lewis make you think he's just one of the worst humans of all time. Did you read the one? I was reading about him playing Christy Brown, or whatever, the guy in My Left Foot, and it said he wouldn't get out of the wheelchair, and that if he wheeled up to, or if he got close to some cables he couldn't wheel over, crew members had to come and pick him up and lift him over it. I was like, man, can you imagine being a crew member? You would just want to stab him in the heart. This guy who can walk.
Tim Blake Nelson tells a fantastic story because he was in Lincoln. Spielberg had come to Lewis, and he had to address him as Mr. President. in between takes, and they'd broken for lunch, or maybe they'd wrapped for the day. I forget what it was, but they were taking a break, and Spielberg walks up to him and goes, "Mr. President, I've just heard word that the current president," and then Tim Blake Nelson goes, "and it's Barack Obama." Just got word that the actual president would like to come to the set and visit and see it next week. Would you be interested in that? And he just turns to Spielberg in full character as Abraham Lincoln and just says, "Oh."
Yeah, I guess like there's another story where Daniel Day-Lewis has not appeared on stage since I think like 89 or 90 or something like that, when he was performing Hamlet. And during the scene with his father's ghost, he actually thought he saw his real life father's ghost and collapsed into a crumbling ball on stage, and they had to take him out of the run, and they put, I forget, some pretty good actor. I think Jeremy Northam took over the role.
Very nice. A little more level.
Yeah. I was like, what's we can defend on Jeremy Northam?
He's not going to hallucinate and demand to be in character in between production.
Oh my goodness, yes. Good actor, though. I do enjoy some Daniel Day-Lewis films. I like Last of the Mohicans for sure.
Absolutely.
He also, James G. Robinson, was the producer of both Young Guns films.
I just saw that. Yeah, I have his filmography up right here. It's good pop fun.
Yeah. I guess Young Guns, those movies have about the same, just slightly lower budgets than this movie.
Okay, so you see this movie. Do you remember about what age you were when you watched it the second time and finished the whole thing?
It would probably be when I was 14, because I saw Pulp Fiction at the theater, and it came out when I was 14, and so I probably would have definitely rented it again while I was 14.
Gotcha. And do you remember really liking it, or kind of having to think about it for a while?
Oh no, I was just all in after seeing Pulp Fiction. I was all in. Another story, my buddy and I, we went and saw, before Pulp Fiction came out, we saw Natural Born Killers at the theater. I think that's where we saw the trailer for Pulp Fiction, and we're just all in on the trailer for Pulp Fiction. But wow, he walked out at some point of Natural Born Killers and went and saw True Lies instead. I'd already seen True Lies and didn't really like it, or I would have joined him. And I think I'm still too young for Natural Born Killers. I watch it for sometimes I'll put on parts of it for just inspiration of just how crazy visually that movie is. But that's too adult for me even at this point, as a 41-year-old man.
I tried watching it a year or two ago, and I feel like I've tried to watch it several times over the years, and get to about the same part, and I was like, I can't, I just got into it.
It's too crazy. I like the parts towards the end more, though, where they're in the prison. Like the parts of Tommy Lee Jones, I really like. Once it gets into, them hanging out in the jail, I like that part more. And you get your buddy, what's his face, Arliss Howard, shows up as some kind of redeeming angel or Satan angel or something.
God, I feel like the combination of Tarantino and Oliver Stone is just too much.
Maybe, yes, yeah.
It's just too much. I think Oliver Stone needs a good script, and then add his heavy-handed style onto. But Tarantino's script is always they're always so heavy to begin with, that it's just too much colliding all at once.
Oliver Stone, one of the great screenwriters.
%, absolutely. Watched JFK this summer, and I was like, God damn, I forgot how good that was.
Yeah, he says that's like his Godfather, and I could see it.
Absolutely. So you see it. You're 14 years old. You watch this movie on the VHS. Will the people listening know what the VHS is?
You could be watching it in pan and scan, and it would probably not be the director's cut, so it'd be slightly less violent than versions we've come to enjoy on DVD, though I don't remember really knowing the difference. Even now, I'm not sure I can tell you all the differences. I think mostly it's that Alabama is more violent with James Gandolfini.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that's the main. That's 90% of the differences. I think there's just more of her bringing him and then killing him in that hotel room.
That's a spoiler. See, all right. Well, it's before we do more spoilers. Let's go into the plot, I guess, and then we'll get into
Let's do it.
spoilers.
Begin spoilers.
Okay, so then at some point she kills James Gandolfini in a hotel room, and with some great boob shake. But anyway, so we start with the opening credits. That's where we find out about James G. Robinson. There's just a few credits, and then we have that song, and then Clarence is in a bar with the lady from Unforgiven, Anna Thompson. It's the main thing I know that lady from. That's another person in this movie who you just immediately recognize, like, oh, it's the lady who gets her face cut up in Unforgiven. And they're talking about Elvis and the recently deceased now Sonny Chiba. And we see Slater. What are your first impressions of this guy Slater's playing here?
He reminded me a lot of my friends that I grew up with, actually. Grand visions. They have a lot of smarts about a certain subject. They just can't quite get their lives together when it comes to any kind of normalcy or any kind of fear past just in this situation, the comic book store, or maybe some of my friends growing up were just working in a pet store, and that's all they ever wanted to do, which was totally fine. That's all they wanted. But I did like, because you can kind of see after he kind of meets her, then things kind of get rolling. He loves that sweet Alabama, and how could you not? She's a tender soul, even though she is very emotional. Too, you can kind of see him kind of right there being at that age where he just kind of wants to have the adventure.
Yeah, he needs to shake it up, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
On IMDb, it says there's a disagreement between Christian Slater and Tony Scott on how to play the character. They don't say how Christian Slater wanted to do it, but they definitely say that Tony Scott saw it as being more like Travis Bickle and had him go and watch Taxi Driver for Inspirato. And I feel that Tony Scott has picked up on something here that reading the script, I picked up on that there are a lot of Taxi Driver nods in this.
100%.
Because we'll get to this in the script, I feel like Clarence is more racist, like Travis Bickle. We also get in the script more of the classic thing about Tarantino that he loves the N-word.
Very much so.
But unlike Taxi Driver, which I think is trying to say this guy's racist, and he's not, and it's kind of inverting the action hero or flipping the action hero on its head and making him a psycho. I think we're supposed to like Clarence a lot.
Yeah, I don't think it would work if he leaned more to that Bickle side. He has to be a likable guy because you have to kind of side with him about to protect the girl, and then it's I say the classic thing of good versus evil, but he's dealing with pimps and drug dealers and cocaine Hollywood producers, and so it's not exactly the most lovely of worlds. So you have to have a likable guy to kind of take you through all those uncharted lands.
Yeah, just the way he gets away with so many things, it's more fanciful, it feels like.
Sure, for sure. You have to have that charm. This character has to have the charm to be able to make that work. Had he been more like Bickle, one, this is such a big story, it wouldn't have worked because Travis Bickle was very isolated and very alone.
Yeah. I agree. More Paul Schrader reference. So he asks the lady if she'll go with him to the triple feature of Sonny Chiba movies, Street Fighter, Sister Street Fighter, or Street Fighter 2 and Sister Street Fighter. Have you seen any of these movies?
I feel like in the early days of Netflix with the DVDs, they were always in my queue, but I always bumped them down or they got replaced, so I have never seen them before.
The first Street Fighter is the first rated R or rated X for violence movie in America. And they're pretty fun. They're silly, but they're pretty fun movies. I'm trying to think that I may not be one. There's another one he doesn't go see in the movie, but maybe it is one he sees that's in the triple feature. But in one of them, like they're fighting in snow, and he just smacks a guy in the back of the head, and the guy's eyes just pop out all crazy and stuff. They're violent, but in a more cartoonish way that doesn't feel as real as in this movie. This movie's violence is gritty. The Street Fighter movies, they're filled with nudity and violence, but it all feels a little Looney Tunes.
Sure.
And then we go, I think we have more credits after that where we kindly get the Karl Orff, Gassenhauser suite ripoff that Hans Zimmer did, which I really love, that was used in the movie Badlands.
I was going to say, yeah, this movie has a couple nods to Badlands. There's the score and then Alabama's narration as well.
Oh, you're right. I didn't even pick up on that.
It's kind of hovering above, sprinkled in occasionally throughout the movie. It's not a lot of it, but just a little bit of a wink.
We go from there to Alabama getting out of the cab outside of the Vista Theater, which is not in Detroit, and it's described as the Lyric Theater in the script, which I'm imagining is in Detroit. The Vista Theater is where Hollywood meets Sunset in LA, and recently, in the last year or so, was purchased by Quentin Tarantino. So he now owns that theater.
Awesome. That's
cool.
fantastic.
Then in the script, she goes inside and orders a large Mr. Pibb and some goobers and some popcorn. We don't have that scene in the movie in any of the cuts. Now, this movie, you'll see tons of Coke product placement throughout, and which was done on purpose. Coke put up some money for this, and Coke did Mr. Pibb, so it's kind of odd they don't bring up the Mr. Pibb because Coke distributed Mr. Pibb. Are you a Mr. Pibb fan?
Love it. When you can find it, it's kind of hard to find sometimes. Dr. Pepper's has the market cornered on style of beverage that is, on the 23 flavor beverage.
I guess what Dr. Pepper is prune flavored?
Good question. That I would have to get onto Al Gore's internet to research.
Coke got Mr. Pibb in 1973, and they marketed it. They were very heavy on marketing it, I guess, as a cherry-flavored beverage, not because they thought it would be thought of as a Dr. Pepper ripoff, but because they thought people would think it was a root beer ripoff, apparently.
Wow. And all kinds of things.
And so we'd have Alabama go into the theater and spill the popcorn on Clarence, and she offers him some goobers. So the goobers do get shown and brought up, and they watch the movie together and start chit-chatting. And then we go then after the movie, they want to go get pie. It's her idea to get pie. And you kind of get the feeling that this is like something the boss, to get ahead of ourselves, told her that Christian Slater likes to do, is get pie after a movie, or do you think she's added this?
I think that she was told to do it all.
I think so too.
Yeah.
We go to this Ray's Diner, which is lit unlike any diner I've ever seen in my life. I don't think there are any lights on in the diner, just crazy light from outside coming off their, like the bounce cards off the stage. Like, I was like, this is an insane diner.
It's a hyper realistic world that Tony Scott lived in.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Maybe it just is how he sees life.
Absolutely. I think even in the commentary, Tarantino even said he goes, no one can like add like a smoke out a room like Tony Scott, like add that smoke for like atmosphere to where it doesn't just a little too much more than like what would naturally be there, but it's just enough to give it the perfect amount of like movie atmosphere and depth.
Yeah, it looks cool. It really does look cool. Oh, also, in these scenes, I don't know if he has it in this part, where he may have like a sports coat, but he also, Clarence wears a military jacket, which I wonder if that was another Travis Bickle reference. He kind of has the Travis Bickle coat.
Yeah. I didn't even pick up on that, but yeah, you're right.
And they eat pie, and he asks her these questions, which are all like Playboy 20 questions, and she gives all these answers, and these are all dated 80s references, right? Except for the girl groups that Phil Spector be from the 60s, but it's like her favorite movie stars, Burt Reynolds, Mickey Rourke is who she finds sexy.
Yeah.
They're definitely not changed from the 1986. And from there, it goes to that he takes her to his work, Heroes for Sale, the comic book store. And he shows her the Spider-Man #1, and then he shows her Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos, issue 4 or something like that. And tells her the story about the ring. And in the screenplay, he gives her the comic book as a gift, as a memento. And then they go back to, and she's really enamored with this comic book store. Do you know many girls that would go in a comic book store, and especially in 1993, and just say,
Hell no.
Like, the world has changed a lot since then. The Marvel movies, it's like being a geek is so much cooler, like that it, for girls especially, and stuff, that it was then. Yeah, when I was growing up, and no woman would go in a comic book store and just be like, this place is so cool.
Look at all these worlds within these books, these tiny books we can watch.
Yeah, if I had shown Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos #4 to a lady, maybe even now, she'd just be like, great. Way to go, Travis Bickle.
Nice. Right. It's like, that's cute.
But she is being paid to do this. But as we learn later, she is actually getting into it. They have that part where he's showing her the comic book and she's looking at him and he doesn't see her looking at him, and we see in her eyes. She does a great job. Trish Arquette is so wonderful in this movie. It's maybe time to mention, do you remember he says in that same commentary who he was thinking of when he wrote the roles in the 80s? Like who he imagined, and he said he didn't want anybody too Hollywood pretty as Clarence, but which he did, I think, probably consider Christian Slater too Hollywood pretty to play Clarence. But then he loves how he played him. He totally does a great job actually, and tones down his prettiness. He's like, I can't imagine anybody else as Alabama now than Patricia Arquette. But do you remember who he wrote it for or wrote it thinking of?
On the tip of my tongue, I haven't listened to that commentary in about 10 years.
Fair. It was Robert Carradine and Joan Cusack.
Damn, wow. That is a different movie. That is
Yes.
a totally different movie.
Robert Carradine from Revenge of the Nerds.
We probably would not even be talking about it if that was the cast.
It's surprising that he's never worked with any of these people. It's like he never brought back Robert Carradine or Joan Cusack in any of his movies. He just hasn't had the right role for them or something. And then they go back to Slater's Pad and Bone, and watching it now, maybe the first time I ever saw that we see Patricia Arquette's nipples. I think on VHS, maybe the resolution was too crappy to make it out, and it was there. Or maybe that's one of those things that was cut for R-rated purposes, but I think maybe it just may have been that the resolution was too poor to see her boob in the shadowiness. I feel like she has all-time great movie boobs.
They're lovely. They're lovely.
Then they fall asleep. Now, in the movie, they've cut out a scene that you see in the Tarantino cut of the thing they put back in where they're in a bathtub together with a ton of candles, and he tells her about Janis Joplin falling in love before she died. And they talk, and it's not bad. But then they have the part where Alabama is like, he wakes up alone, and she's outside in that crazy, here's another crazy thing that probably wouldn't be this high budget in the Tarantino directed or Maniac Cop directed movie, where it's like all the steam's coming out of the building and stuff. It's like, it seems like it's pretty crazy, but she's out there, and I was thinking where she comes clean about being a hooker. And that scene is so wonderful, I feel like, in the movie. I really like it, but half of it is cut from the script. The script is she talks way longer and tells him about her backstory and stuff. And I think in the diner too, she tells him more about her backstory, and it's all kind of made up and a lie and stuff. And I don't think it's that good, but it kind of does set up that she's invents stories, which actually comes into play a couple of times later down in the line in the movie where she makes stuff up. There is definitely, she talks about how she had amnesia or something, and when they're in the diner, she says that she woke up and thinks she's from Tallahassee and her name's Alabama because it was on her driver's license, and she just came to in a cab. She took some blow on the head or was in a car wreck, and he kind of busts her on bullshitting, and then she comes clean here, and this is a lot longer thing. He also has a thing where he talks about, I guess in real life, the name Alabama is taken from the Pam Grier movie, maybe Women in Cages, I forget which one, where she played a character named Alabama. But in the script, he says it sounds like a Pam Grier character, and he does this whole rundown. He's like, Alabama, blah, 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 coming at you, where it's like, coming at you fast and furious. She's a woman on the something, and it comes back at the end. You hear it again at the end of the movie, at the end of the screenplay and narration, but it's not in the movie. And perhaps not necessary. Yeah.
Speaking of, so I enjoy Tarantino's movies. I do. It's kind of interesting to see be ambitious from someone so young. Obviously had a voice and a vision and a fine knowledge of dialogue and story and pacing. But it be a Tarantino movie without it being one at the same time. Obviously, since it's being directed by somebody else, so you don't get that 70s soundtrack. You don't get the kind of the cool kind of show-offy dialogue. It's there, but it's not quite there. It's kind of contained a little bit. So I'd be curious. He just been screenwriter and not a director.
Oh yeah, how that would be.
That would have played out. Obviously, it's hypothetical, but it's it's pretty interesting being one, but also very I don't want to say neutered, but just different in a way.
Yeah, I would definitely not call this neutered, although I guess you could argue that with some of the cuts of things, of the lines and things, that perhaps it is.
True, yeah.
We go into the tattoo parlor, I think, next. Or maybe they get married really fast and we get more of that Gassenhauser suite riff thing. And then we go into the tattoo parlor. And this has the one maybe real big reference, like thing that's left in that shows the more racist Clarence. Because when she tells him about Drexel, the first thing she tells him about her pimp Drexel, and he says, "Is Drexel black? Or is he black?" And I was thinking that might have been a really hard line to figure out how to deliver for Christian Slater. He does a good job, but it's like I could imagine I have that script, be like, man, how should I ask? Is he black?
How do I put this in a very polite way?
And we go from that to the first meeting. Oh, by the way, we've had a big departure here from the screenplay. In the screenplay, all of the things we've seen after the first scene of him talking to that lady in the bar, none of that will have happened yet in the script. That all happens later. Everything that we've seen after that. The entire date with Alabama and the Sonny Chiba films, that's all later. But the next scene, I believe, is where we finally meet Drexel. And we meet Drexel in the hotel room, and that's the second scene of the screenplay.
Really? He shows up that early in the script?
Yes.
Interesting.
And we meet Floyd D, and we meet Big D, played by Samuel L. Jackson. And in the script, Marty isn't there, played by, I think, not Alan Bates, something Bates, the guy from Coming to America. But this is a much longer scene in the screenplay, too, where they go into talking about when black people started eating pussy, like it's long and very graphic. And this is one of the dated references that has been changed. It turns into, Drexel grabs a shotgun and he's going to teach Floyd D how to give oral sex to a woman. And he says, "This is that fine centerfold bitch." But in the screenplay, he says, "Imagine this is Jane Kennedy." And Jane Kennedy, I guess, was an old Playboy model, kind of a light-skinned, maybe ethnic woman of some kind, it looks like. I was just looking at pictures of her. We also meet Drexel for the first time. Drexel is probably one of the most indelible figures in the film. How do you feel about Gary Oldman as Drexel?
Perfect. He's just perfect. I love him. I think this is White Boy Day or something.
It's one of the great movie performances. Do you know how he thought of this? Or how he came up with his thing?
I read about it a couple years ago at whatever anniversary that was film. And you'll have to remind me. I'm sorry.
He got the idea from the guy that plays one of his assistants in The Professional. You remember there's that one white guy with dreads and the poncho when they're going around? And this guy is apparently he's an actor, or I guess he's an actor in The Professional named Willie Oneblood. And Willie Oneblood, as far as I can tell, was more of a dance hall reggae singer. And he had a song on the soundtrack to Dumb and Dumber called "She Make Me Crazy." Yeah, she make me nervous. And he had some other songs.
I love it because this movie is like an archaeological dig. The more we talk about it, just the more we just find out.
Yes, I'll tell you, this movie, I thought I knew everything about True Romance, but I did not. We've got so many planes flying over right now. Oh, and a siren.
What?
It's like we're in Detroit. That's the helicopter. That's the ghetto bird. But anyway, Willie Oneblood did more acting. I did not so much acting over the years, and I don't think had that many songs. I really couldn't find that many Willie Oneblood songs, but the one from Dumb and Dumber was the one I liked the best, and I think his biggest song. He had a music video and everything.
Didn't he steal the wig from Bram Stoker's Dracula?
Oh, wow.
To then take to this movie?
I didn't know that.
He did. I think he did. I'll have to fact check that.
Not the high wig, but the one he has later, maybe when he's young Dracula.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think he's so good in this. You don't hear the British accent in his voice at all. To me.
No, I mean he shows up. What's he in two full scenes in the completed movie?
Yes, and I think in the screenplay as well, he doesn't have any more scenes. They are longer, the scenes. He has more lines, but he's not in more of it. It's pretty amazing that he puts such full effort into this role.
Absolutely. I mean, he probably did 2 days worth of work. Maybe 3.
Yeah, maybe more. I don't know. That second scene, it seems like it's a lot of setups. But I bet this first scene was 1 or 2 days or something.
I think that's the benefit of having Tony Scott direct your movie, is that he can make things like this happen.
That's amazing to me. He's so good. Then we go back, but he kills Drexel, without, I think, the help of Marty's just around, kills Floyd D and Big D. So we get this impression that Drexel's a dangerous dude. We know that he's a scary guy. And it kind of reminded me, reading in the script coming so early, and so it comes a long time in the script before Clarence gets to going to Drexel's pad. And it kind of reminded me of an old movie called The Wagon Master that I like, where you see these criminals at the beginning do this crime, and then they don't show up again for like half the movie almost. And then all of a sudden, like, these guys are on this trail. It's about Ben Johnson and Harry Carey Jr. lead a team of Mormons, lead a bunch of Mormons that are having to settle somewhere out in the West, and all of a sudden the outlaws show up and are like, hey, we want some food. And you're like, oh yeah, I remember these guys are no good. But anyway, so we go back to Clarence's pad, and they're watching, I think it's not what they're watching in the actual movie. I forget what they're actually watching in the movie. In the script, it was the one-armed swordsman versus the 9 killers. But in the movie, they're watching something else. And this is where he gets where he goes and he's having trouble thinking about Alabama and Drexel. And he decides that he wants to go kill Drexel after a meeting with the character of Mentor in the bathroom, who is Val Kilmer, who apparently wanted to play Clarence. And would have been way pretty, feels like.
Too pretty. A little too pretty.
In the screenplay, too, and before he goes in the bathroom and talks to Mentor, is known as Elvis in the screenplay, he talks to, he has like a vision, or just he imagines Alabama with her pimp. And the pimp, like, is very, once again, like Taxi Driver. I think he says very similar lines to, like, Matthew in Taxi Driver, who's, like, telling some John how he can do all these terrible things to her for money and stuff. Then he imagines the pimp, like, kicking her in the stomach and telling her, bitch, get out and make me some money and all this stuff. And I forget if it's a black pimp or white pimp in the vision, because I think at this point he would have already been told that Drexel was white. But he might still imagine a black guy. I don't know. But like, then he goes and beats. How do you like Val Kilmer as Elvis?
It's another perfect thing. It's like I would have never thought about that in 100 years.
No,
like,
I remember.
Total sense.
I was so disappointed at the lack of Val Kilmer in the movie, though. When I saw it, I was just like, "That's all the Val Kilmer we get." He comes up one more time in the movie, but we never see his face. But I think he's really good.
Yeah, he does a great Elvis. He does a wonderful Elvis.
I would have liked some thoughts of it, some footage or thoughts of it. And have you seen Val?
Not seen it. A buddy of mine watched it. I have not had a chance to watch it yet, though.
Oh boy, it's a terrible movie. I thought that people just can't wait to tell you bad things about Val Kilmer in life, and judging from this movie, they seem to all be true. Val Kilmer just seems insufferable.
Wow.
One of my favorite things about Val Kilmer is, he grew up Christian Science. He is a Christian Scientist. He still is. And he got this idea to do a movie about the story of Mark Twain and Mary Baker Eddy and write a screenplay of it, that's fine. But part of his idea to get more inside the character of Mark Twain was that he's going to start doing this one-man show as Mark Twain and make that like a big thing he does. And does he not know that Hal Holbrook is like massively famous for doing a one-man show of Mark Twain? It's like his whole career is based on it. It's just like, what? He had to have known. Just like, y'all steal this guy's act.
I could do it better.
Just do a pretty good Mark Twain impression. Sounds kind of like Hal Holbrook.
Little bit. There was some Chuck Klosterman article about him. About Val Kilmer. This is many years ago now. It's in.
Oh, I'd like to read that.
It's in his book called Four. It's just like the collection of all his essays or like articles that he wrote. The article begins with Kilmer saying, "I just like looking at them." Val Kilmer said as he stared at the bison. One of them began to defecate, and Val Kilmer kept staring at the bison.
Yeah, it just seems so self-centered and unself-aware. And it's so crazy. There's some good stuff on the set of, Island of Dr. Moreau, though, where he was filming home movies on that. I don't want to spoil that too much for people because it's such a new movie. But yeah, I always like Val Kilmer as an actor a lot, and you just hear terrible things. I'd really like to hear at some point I'd like to hear Quentin Tarantino's thoughts on Val Kilmer. Because, of course, he's worked with the other Tombstone star, Kurt Russell, a few times now. And I'd like to see what he thinks of Kilmer.
Does he mention him at all in the commentary on Romance?
I don't think so, no. I think he mentions the famous thing that they changed it from Elvis to Mentor so as not to get sued by the Elvis Presley estate. But I don't think he doesn't have anything to say about it. He famously, where it says on there, he was never on the set at all. He stayed away.
I was reading that.
Yeah, and then he goes, so after this, he gets the idea to go kill Drexel. Alabama tries to talk him out of going to get her stuff, but he grabs a gun and says he's going to get her things, but we know he's really going there to kill him. And then this is one of those things where in the script, and in the Tarantino cut, there's like a title card that tells us we're going into the class district of downtown Detroit or something like that, and actually tells us that. Then he goes to this place, and Marty, in the script, it's the first time we meet Marty. Marty answers the door, and he comes in, and he gets in there, and we go in, and in the script, he immediately meets Drexel, but first, in this movie, he gets led back in there. This is a crazy Tony Scott world of this bordello home of Gary Oldman Drexel with like 1,000 aquariums.
There's like 9 people all just hanging around him.
Yeah, it's crazy. And one of the first things, one of the only things, there are a few things in the script I wish that they would have kept. And one of the, that I don't were ever shot, but one of these is that Drexel starts talking to Clarence about how good crack whores are. And he tells him that he talks about like how a lot of them are young and it's really good, loving, and how they'll do anything, these crack whores, for more rock and stuff. He's like, it's great. You know what I'm talking about. The dialogue is pretty funny.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Then we have the part where where Drexel's eating the Chinese food, and they talk about, they negotiate, and there's the Mac on the TV. Have you ever seen the Mac?
Long time ago.
How'd you like it? I've never seen it. I was thinking about watching it, and then I just like in the end forgot to watch it.
I think it's one of those ones where like I need to watch it again. I was way too young to get it. I think I was staying the night at my uncle's house and he wanted to watch it, and I was like, everything went over my head.
Also here we have, with Alabama's pants and stuff. There's so many things in Drexel with the robe. It's like if you ever see a guy in our age range after a certain time period that's like wearing a robe, I automatically just assume the guy has a coke habit. It's like I feel like robe is a very cocaine man choice. But all of the animal prints we see in this film, it's like they're trying to tell us this is a jungle of crime people and stuff. There are lots of animal prints, and I think the idea got recycled in Ridley Scott's The Counselor.
That's a horrible movie.
I kind of liked it. Maybe it was that the reviews were so bad that it set my expectations low. I've been thinking about watching it again. I've only seen it once, but I kind of liked it.
Yeah, I tried. I had very, very high hopes for it. Again, another great cast played by Cormac McCarthy and directed by Ridley Scott. I was like, this is checking a lot of boxes for me.
Yes.
And it just, oh God, it just shit all over the screen. I was like, I was just not into it.
There's a lot of bad taste in this movie, like in clothing and stuff that just looks wonderful in the movie, but you're like, wow, if you're just walking around the set of True Romance, there's just so many horrible things to see. Garish. So Clarence gives him the envelope of how much he's willing to pay for Alabama's freedom and her stuff, and they realize it's empty, and this puts them in. Then Drexel attacks Clarence, and then they have their big war. And at first, Drexel and Marty come out on top of this battle, of this action scene, and Drexel has this line that's like, "You done fucked up again." After he's talking to Marty. Do you feel like when he's talking, he says you done fucked up again, that he's talking to Marty or Clarence?
Probably Marty.
I always thought he was talking to Marty. He's talking to Clarence. It's about how, like, he fucked up by coming in there, and then he fucked up by leaving his wallet that has his address on it, his ID that has his address on it. It's clear in the script, but in the movie, I always thought he was saying you done fucked up again about Marty's nose.
Yeah, interesting. It's like one of those like just like little gaps that they kind of maybe just forgot to put in.
Well, it goes on longer. He talks longer about what he's going to do, how he's going to bring Alabama back there, and he says that in the movie, but then he says that he's going to like make Alabama like give him a blowjob while Clarence watches and stuff. It's like it goes on.
Jesus.
Oh, and then we have where Marty is looking for his jacket off screen, and we kind of hear Drexel's reply of something about a hamper, but it's muffled. In the script, it's slightly longer line where he's like, "Look behind the hamper. Arlene been putting everybody's dirty clothes back there for 2 weeks now," or something like that. It's a longer line that's pretty funny.
I love it.
This is when Clarence pulls the gun and starts blasting and stuff. And before he kills Drexel, in the script, he calls him a wannabe N-word and then shoots him.
Damn! The script was cut out for the film.
Yes. No, I don't think that was ever shot, that line.
Yes.
Then he returns home with the hamburgers, and we get the scene where he tells Alabama, and she starts crying, and she thinks she's crying for Drexel, but she's crying because it's so romantic.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. She's truly smitten in that role, or in that scene rather.
Yes, and they start kissing, and then she finds out that the things in the bag are not her clothes, but quite a large amount of cocaine. And
quite a princely sum.
What seems like an incredible amount of cocaine.
That's true.
Then we cut to what is in the screenplay, the third scene of the movie. The movie goes from him talking at the bar to the lady, to Drexel shooting Floyd D and Big D, to third, Cliff's place. Cliff, Clarence's dad, getting off work with Dennis Hopper, when his dog Rommel the Rottweiler, which I thought is cute. And that's the third scene of the screenplay. We have when he drives home, the train coming at the same time is classic, like Hollywood. Like that probably wouldn't have been in a lower budget version timing that just right, although maybe if they could do it. And we get the Little Bitty Tear Let Me Down song, which is the only song that the script is filled with song ideas for scenes, and that's the only one used by Burl Ives, which is always a good time to remember that Burl Ives matter.
Forever and always. That one caught me off guard. It's the best thing I've ever heard in my life. That's so funny.
Then Clarence and Alabama show up and tell him that they're married and that they need his help to find out if there's any word about this Drexel thing. So this is the first time we meet Alabama in the script, is they're already married and they show up at Cliff's pad, his trailer. And we find out that he's a recovering alcoholic.
And not the best relationship with his son. Hasn't seen his son in quite some time and grown apart. He and the old man loves his son, but they've grown apart.
And the part, Christian Slater doing the speech about how like everybody said you were a bad dad or something, you were just a drunk, and he's like, but not me, I never gave you shit or asked you for anything. I really like that stuff, and that part of him saying that stuff and his acting in that scene. When this movie needs to go for those emotional moments, like Alabama and him outside the apartment and her coming clean about being a prostitute, and him talking to his dad outside and begging for the help, they really work for me.
Absolutely. Well, that's one of those things that you don't really get like in a normal, but in his other movies that he's made.
You're right, just like really earnest talk like that.
Just a real genuine conversation about a father and a son.
And then in the movie he comes back and says, okay, they think it's a drug thing, blah, blah, blah. In the script, he actually calls a guy, and there is a back and forth with him on a cop on the phone who he hasn't talked to in a long time and has gotten divorced since the last time he asks about the guy's wife. And the guy's like, I've been divorced for like 2 years.
Right.
And then they tell him they're going to go be with Dick Ritchie in Hollywood. And they leave that address that he puts on his refrigerator. Then we go to them calling Dick Ritchie. And all of this happens before the Street Fighter movie marathon in the screenplay, including, they call Dick Ritchie. Oh, when they leave, it's like, first we get to see Dick Ritchie's audition, which just feels like a total real life thing. Like it makes you really sad for actors, right?
It was a very painful scene to watch. Painful because it's so real.
Yes, it feels very real and sad. You're like, oh man, this must be like, it's one of those things where I remember, like there's that character Fat Ass in Shawshank Redemption, and you just think about like people having to go in for roles where they play a character like named Fat Ass. and things like that. And just, acting auditions must be just the roughest for people.
Brutal. You're in a room and you have to pretend and you don't really know. You're interacting with people that you don't know.
And it's one scene, you have 2 lines, and the audition takes 3 seconds. And there's like 50 dudes that are, at least, that are coming through that day.
Exactly. They just got paperwork. They go, all right, we'll just call you back. We'll be in touch.
And this with Conchata Farrell. You're a very fine actor, Mr. Ritchie, and you don't feel like she thinks he's a fine actor at all.
It's just a recycled line that she says to everybody.
Yes, it's taped audition thing. Then they kiss the dad goodbye. They have Alabama kiss Cliff goodbye. And if my wife kisses my father on the lips like that, I'm hiring a divorce lawyer immediately. But not Clarence.
Not Clarence. He's smitten. He's smitten with that sweet Alabama.
So then they call Dick Ritchie, and they have the big bopper with the Chantilly lace. And Dick Ritchie is Michael Rappaport, and he's talking to him in his apartment on the phone while he's pooping. Right?
It's such a dude thing to do. It's such a guy thing.
Well, this is the era, for those of people that don't remember landlines, how many bathrooms have phone jacks in them?
I think knowing, just sort of understanding Dick Ritchie, he probably just bought a longer cord.
Oh, okay. He had to go with him.
So he could just take it into the bathroom in case he got a call back from an audition. He could answer it.
Needed privacy from Floyd.
Just hanging out on the couch the whole time.
This is where we get Dick Ritchie's weird Elvis shirt with the hair that goes up like it's like some kind of like oil slick up into the neck area. This t-shirt always weirded me out of Elvis. The one movie we looked at before this was Gleaming the Cube. And in Gleaming the Cube, Christian Slater wears an Elvis Jailhouse Rock t-shirt. Okay, so then we have the very famous scene after he calls Dick Ritchie and tells him about coming to Hollywood. Dick Ritchie says that he's out of toilet paper, calls out to his roommate Floyd, the second Floyd in the script, who we don't see yet. And then...
Is that the scene when he calls Floyd the first time? Is that the scene when they refer to the cocaine as Dr. Zhivago?
No, I don't think he uses that yet. I think that comes. Okay. I think that's not till way later when he's on the phone with Lee Donowitz. In fact, he tells him to look at the letter. He's like, "You haven't opened your mail? Look at your mail. There's a letter that explains everything."
Right. That's right.
And then we have Cliff returning home again to his trailer, and Rommel the Rottweiler runs away before he goes in. So the Rottweiler smells trouble, I guess. Doesn't go in the trailer with Cliff. Cliff goes in, and sure enough, there are like 7 famous thugs in his house, led by Christopher Walken as Vincent Cacotti, the counsel for Mr. Lulu Boyle, who is looking for the cocaine. And we've got Gandolfini. We don't have Kevin Corrigan here, but we have Victor Argo, James Gandolfini, and Paul Ben Victor. And I think that's it. So it really is just 4 guys. And then there's tons of smoke. There's an aquarium again, and then like a shaft of light coming through the roof down behind Vincent Cacotti. Just all kinds of visual stimulation going on in this little trailer.
Great Jeffrey Kimball, man,
yes.
as the DP.
I don't know. Do you have anything to say about this scene, really? It's such a famous movie scene.
I was going to say, it's so famous and it's been quoted 18 times. It's a scene you probably couldn't make today if you're making this movie. But,
unless you're already famous, like Quentin Tarantino might be able to make this scene, but nobody else.
He's about the only one. But the language is not exactly kosher, but it's still a magnificent scene. Probably some of the best acting of the 90s, or really of any decade that you'll ever see, is in that. How long is that scene? 7-8 minutes long?
I'm not sure. Yeah, it goes on for a while. It's pretty classic. Yeah. I don't feel like much is cut from the script out of it either. It's pretty much all there, except for this is the scene where they changed 1984 to 1974.
Sure, just kind of update the years. I mean, it's such a beautifully written, and it's just acted. You wouldn't want to change a note in the entire thing, in the entire scene.
In fact, in the version of the script I read, there's one line in the movie that isn't in the script that I read, but may have been added later, that has the thing where he punches him in the face, and he's like, "What I have to offer you, it's never going to get that. It's something like it's not that good. It's never going to get that good again." It's like, that's for that line is pretty good. I was like, I like what he says. It's not going to get that. Like, that's the least of the torture you're going to get. But yeah, I don't have anything to add. They kill Dennis Hopper after he holds out. Now in the screenplay, So this is a major difference, I guess, between watching the movie in order and out of order, and out of chronological order, is that you don't know, you know he's killed Drexel, that Clarence has killed Drexel and married Alabama, but you don't know if he's a good guy or a bad, like what the deal with the cocaine is at all, really. You haven't seen the cocaine, you don't know about the cocaine, you only know the letter explains something. And so when Vincent Concotti comes in and talks about his bitch whore girlfriend, you don't know she's a prostitute until that moment, and you still don't know exactly what it means. Like, and he talks about him killing the pimp Drexel.
There is something to be said for that scene. Like, I think it's always one of my favorite just movie moments you film. Whenever see the situation, Dennis Hopper, you could just see him know
Yes.
2/3 of the way through that
There's no way he's walking
gonna,
out.
Exactly. And it's not that he gives up, like go down swinging.
Yeah.
He just knows, and then you just know as an audience, watch it the first time anyway, or if you haven't seen the movie in a while, just kind of see him, just kind of accept it as one of those cigarettes now.
The Chesterfields.
The Chesterfields. It has Chesterfields.
It's
They
great
just
in
lights
a
it.
movie where they have a moment like that where you can tell the actor is realizing something that isn't verbalized. Exactly. And we were just
Absolutely.
talking about that several episodes ago now in the movie Mobsters, where Richard Grieco kills Chris Penn, but is talking to Chris Penn, and at some point when they're talking, Chris Penn realizes he's about to get whacked and doesn't say it, but there's his face, you see it in his face that he's like, oh wait, he's here to whack me. And it's really,
Yeah.
it is really delicious. You're right. It feels really good. But also in the script, you don't know how much of a fool he is or isn't not to give his son up. Like, you don't know how innocent or guilty Clarence is of just wanting to be a coke baron or something.
For sure.
Or if the cocaine's real. You don't know a lot of things. It's like that's kind of, I guess, the mystery is that you don't know exactly what happened. But yeah, Dennis Hopper gets killed as Cliff Worley. It would later be, name Cliff would get reused in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as Cliff Booth.
Yeah.
And they get the address of Dick Ritchie. After getting no information out of Cliff, they immediately get all the information they need off of the refrigerator. And I believe this is where the script goes to the Street Fighter thing. And we go back and see the whole history of Alabama and Clarence. Which I have to say, I think it's better in chronological order, because seeing it out of order, and I can't go back and not have seen it out of order first. I think that
Sure.
that when you see it in chronological order, it makes them falling in love less perfunctory. Like, if you see all that stuff, that if you see it out of order, you already know they're going to get married. You already know Drexel gets killed by him. It's like that stuff is that's more of a mystery if with it in order than out of order. So it's kind of boring watching their whole date when it's out of order in a way.
I was going to say, yeah, having not known that original script was as chronological as the film itself. Yeah, there are some things that just wouldn't work
Yeah, it doesn't work as well.
out of order. Yeah, that's interesting.
And yeah, you can see what he's thinking. Like, yeah, it's like you make this separation, then it's like a mystery kind of what happened, and you find out what happened. But it does make it slower, makes the movie slower. So then we go to California, and they're on the road listening to Aerosmith. Oh, here's our first question. I believe what we saw when they're watching at the house maybe earlier is like a John Woo movie, The Killer, or It's a Better Tomorrow 2. Do you like John Woo movies?
Not at all. I'm not a fan.
Interesting. How many? Which
Yeah.
ones have you seen?
What's the one with Van Damme where they cuts the
Hard
arrow
Target.
off? Hard Target, yeah. Hard Target, a Broken Arrow, whichever Mission Impossible piece of shit that was that he made.
Mission Impossible 2.
God, that movie was horrible. And when I worked in the movie theater, I worked that summer that movie came out.
So did I.
And so we had, and so we had to watch the end of it with just the three people in the theater just waiting to clean the theater. I was like, just leave, save your, just go donate this money to a charity instead of going to watch this goddamn movie. Oh my God, it was bad.
The only positive thing I can say about Mission Impossible 2 is that in retrospect, if you try, as a person who loves Mission Impossible 1, and I like Mission Impossible 4 as well, but if you watch all the Mission Impossibles now, Mission Impossible 2 is the only one that isn't straight up a remake of Mission Impossible 1 in some way. So it actually stands out as being at least different from all the other movies.
Interesting.
All
Very
the others feel like a
interesting.
reordering of the events of the first Mission Impossible. There's always some kind of version of him getting disavowed. There's the big stunt, or the big suspense. We've got to rob this thing in him. I do also feel though that Mission Impossible 2 started the tradition of Tom Cruise doing an impossible stunt in every movie. with him in the beginning on the cliffs, the rock climbing at the beginning.
Yeah, just climbing a mountain as you do.
So now,
He also had long hair in that one, didn't he? Yeah. He had long
and then he
hair.
had to put the masks on and they don't
Yes.
somehow it covers his whole hair.
God, and they've got the doves. Yeah. I know. John Woo has his audience, and God bless him.
So you haven't seen the foreign John Woo movies?
No, I never have. Maybe I should. From what I have seen, I'm just like, God.
You've had enough.
I've had enough. Yeah.
So in back to the plot, they roll into Hollywood or LA at sunrise, and you get this beautiful sunrise, and we'll get repeatedly Tony Scott will shoot these scenes at sunrise and sunset, like almost every time they're driving around at some kind of magic hour. And California has beautiful sunrises and sunsets, but in my mind, to mar it, they're playing Aerosmith. How do you feel about Aerosmith?
They're fine. Yeah. I think it's one of those deals where, like, you've heard their songs 1,000 times, so it's like, at this point, I don't know if they're good or bad. You're just like, okay, yeah, it fits, fine.
Well, similar to your feelings on John Woo are my feelings about Aerosmith. I don't care for Aerosmith one whit. I kind of like their cover of that Beatles song, but it's like I mostly just like that song, I think.
Sure.
I'd rather listen to the Ike and Tina Turner cover.
Sure.
So then they go to to Dick Ritchie's house, and we finally meet the roommate Floyd, played by Brad Pitt, which for many years was my favorite Brad Pitt performance. I don't always think he's such a good actor. I like that he tries to be a really good actor and make good movies, it seems like, but I think that Floyd is one of his finest performances.
Just the stoner on the couch.
And yeah, on that commentary, Tarantino says that he's like, Brad Pitt sold me for all time as an actor on this movie because this character Floyd really wasn't much in the script. It was just kind of a little sketch, and it's like he added a lot to this. I do think the people that added the most of their parts, I feel like, and changed their parts the most are Brad Pitt and Bronson Pinchot, who we'll get to soon. They really did a lot of improvising to the movie's betterment, I believe, to the credit of the film.
I would agree to that. Yeah.
And we also...
you don't really hear a lot about like improv or ad-libbing in a Tarantino movie.
No, he doesn't seem to care for it. But this one has some for sure.
Absolutely.
Also, we have his main complaint with the film, though, are that the framed posters in their house or their apartment. He's like, these characters could not afford to frame their posters, A, and B, these would not be the movies they would choose. They just seemed like they were posters a production designer found and threw up everywhere. Although I
remember that.
He does recommend the movie Highway 301, which I watched. It's kind of a fun film noir from 1950 about a gang of bank robbers. And this is also where Dick needs to be filled in because allegedly Floyd smoked the second page of the letter. And my question is, what kind of paper is this letter written on? It's like, you can't smoke like notebook paper. It's like, was it written on the Bible or a receipt or zigzags?
Yes, what was the papyrus that they used for this letter?
Yeah, I gotta question that. Then they go outside to discuss the drug deal, and then they get in this Mustang driving around. This scene was written in the script as taking place at Pink's Hot Dogs, the famous Hollywood hot dog place on La Brea, and we got a lot of imagery and talk about the hot dogs and stuff in it, in addition to what is in the script. And yeah, it was all right. Also, we get after this is where they meet Elliot at Magic Mountain and go on it was Bronson Pinchot, who's fantastic in the movie. But this was
just
different.
chewing scenery the
whole
time.
I think he's really good at it. They also, this has changed as well from the screenplay. They didn't meet at Magic Mountain. They met at this LA Zoo. And it starts off with a shot of a Black Panther in its cage, and it points out in the screenplay description that it's the animal kind of Black Panther, not the human kind of Black Panther. But I was thinking, is this another Paul Schrader reference to the movie Cat People? And is this maybe recycled later in Inglourious Bastards when they use the song from Cat People?
Good question. It's all part of the Tarantino cinematic universe.
So I guess to explain, they're going to use this actor to this actor, Elliot Blitzer, who works for, as an assistant or something to a famous movie producer in the movie named Lee Donowitz, who might be able to buy all of their cocaine and want to. And they're there to discuss the deal with them. And they talk about it on a roller coaster. And these sound effects in this roller coaster are intense. But this is all chosen, once again, for more visual intensity than them wandering around a zoo.
Yeah.
And they sell Elliot Blitzer on this, and he calls Lee Donowitz because Clarence wants to talk to him. This is our first introduction to Saul Rubinek, who is super. This is probably like this and Unforgiven are the big Saul Rubinek moments in history I could think of.
And I can never have more than enough Saul Rubinek. He should just be in everything.
He's great.
He's just fantastic. God, I love him.
He was watching him with my dad once again in a Jesse Stone movie, one of those Tom Selleck movies, and I was like, man, I just really like Saul Rubinek. He, of course, turns out to be the villain.
Sure.
But here Saul Rubinek has all that talk on the phone about when this is where we get Clarence referring to the drugs as Dr. Zhivago.
Gotcha.
And he tells him, he's like, Clarence was put on this earth to make good movies, nothing more, nothing less. And I think he ad-libs the line, which I love after, where he's like, well, sometimes a little less.
Yeah, he could have slipped that one in there just a little bit, but it made it better.
And they're sipping on the Coca-Colas in this scene when they're hanging out when Elliot Blitzer's throwing up, right? They've got the Coca-Colas for some nice Coke product placement.
Sure.
And after this, I think, is when Gandolfini goes and visits Floyd, and we have the first instance of Brad Pitt just giving up immediately where the heroes are to people, which is a hilarious running gag. Really good. And ask him if he wants to stay and smoke a bowl with him out of the Honey Bear. Then he tells him not to condescend to him because he'll kill him. And after that, Gandolfini goes to the Safari Hotel, which has a Coke billboard outside, where Slater has left Alabama where he's going to go get some food. And I just saw the movie Eyes of Tammy Faye, and I guess a big thing of her was she liked to drink Diet Coke, but this movie just had rampant Diet Coke imagery in Eyes of Tammy Faye. They used to always have her drinking a Diet Coke with the label turned toward the camera. And there's even one shot where they're using like a short focus lens. It's a wide shot, and everything in the frame in her house is out of focus except for her and a Diet Coke. And I was like, there's no reason for the Diet Coke to be in focus in this shot, except for they're like, can we make that a little more? We need to see that Coke. But
how was that movie?
I enjoyed it. It was maybe a little like I could have been better, but I didn't mind it.
Interesting.
It had some really funny parts. I liked it. It was informative. That story is just, I mean, you're slightly younger than me, but that story's like slightly before my time even of really understanding stories and like that in the news, like tabloid stories. So most of that was new to me, really. The Jessica Hahn and all that stuff. I would have liked to have seen more of Jim Baker's bad behavior is my big thing.
Sure.
It's like not enough.
Sure.
It was really focused on Tammy Faye, and you didn't really see any church orgies or anything, which I would have enjoyed seeing depicted from a sick man.
I watched the documentary. I think actually it's the same name.
Yes.
Several years, I don't know, 15 or so years ago, and enjoyed it. So I was familiar with the story enough, but I may catch it on streaming, in a couple months.
It's one available. That you're not missing anything by not seeing it at the theater. One thing I did like about it was it's the first time I think I've seen that actor Louis Cancelmi, but since The Irishman, who played Sally Buggs in The Irishman, and he's ever since The Irishman is probably my favorite new actor to see in a movie. Where I'm just like, ooh, that guy, I liked him.
Guy played Sally Buggs.
Yeah, the guy with the crazy glasses.
Yes. He's in Flower Moon as well.
Yes, I read he's going to be in Flower Moon. That's right.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that. So then we get Gandolfini's at the hotel with Alabama, and he starts asking her questions about where her husband is and stuff. And this is where we get her making up a lie, which was done more in the script and not so much in the movie, where she tells him that her boyfriend, she doesn't know any Clarence or have any Coke, but there's a Pepsi machine down the way, and her boyfriend's coming back soon. He's a football player, and he's at practice. And she doesn't go more into it, but in the script, she actually says the name of her husband or her boyfriend, and it's Lyle Alzado, the famous 80s Raiders player back when they were the LA Raiders, Darth Raider himself, who would have been a scary husband for sure, boyfriend for sure. But I think she says his name wrong. Like she gets it wrong. She's like, his name is my boyfriend, Lyle Alexado, or something like that. And then James Gandolfini, when he attacks her in the movie, punches her in the face and then smiles all crazy. And I believe that IMDb says that his role was supposed to be Tom Sizemore, but Tom Sizemore ended up playing the cop and recommended James Gandolfini to Tony Scott or the makers of the movie for this role. Gandolfini's fantastic. But in the script, the character does kung fu and does like a flying kick at her, and later on explains how he's been learning all this kung fu.
That's fantastic.
And we cut away to Clarence talking at the hamburger stand about the Elvis Newsweek to the guy who's buddies with Jeremy Piven and John Cusack. The thing I like of this scene is how when he first asks him about the Newsweek and the guy answers him, immediately the guy kind of turns away and hunches over like he knows this is a crazy guy he doesn't want to talk to, and Clarence just ignores the social cue and goes in and just starts talking to him about Elvis. Whoa.
Oh, was it you?
No, I think so. There's something outside. Somebody honking the horn.
Okay.
We're in prime time in Hollywood right now. So we get the long action scene with her and Virgil, played by Gandolfini, which is just filled with violence and brutality in this small little hotel room and hotel bathroom. Very effectively scary.
Yeah.
Before she kills him. And then Clarence shows up and gets her out of there in a hurry. They just drive off, and you hear the cops coming in the distance. And then we get where Pincho's driving around getting head from Candy, and then they get pulled over, and the cocaine goes everywhere because she won't help him. She was also a waitress, I think, in Natural Born Killers, but she's hard to recognize in this movie. I just learned that looking her up on IMDb. And then we finally meet Dimes and Nicholson, Sizemore and Penn, and where they sweat him. Yeah, where they sweat him. How do you like them?
You know, they played movie cops really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just the Tarantino version of a cop, and it's you can tell that they have history together. I love that, like because they have very few scenes together. Within the film, but I love it. It just speaks to the writing when you have.
Yeah, you really believe they've been partners for a long time. There are a few lines that indicate it, but their interplay is so good.
Absolutely,
and they're two wonderful actors. Chris Penn, another dead person. Victor Argo, James Gandolfini, a lot of dead people. Frank Adonis, Dennis Hopper, Sonny Chiba, a lot of dead people in this movie. But
Tom Sizemore's career.
Yeah, Tom Sizemore's career. Wow. Yes. Between Gandolfini, Sizemore, Slater, and Chris Penn, how much cocaine do you think was consumed on the set of this movie?
God, all of it. Just all of it.
So they get Bronson Pinchot to flip, talking to him about how much he's going to get raped in prison. And then they go talk to their chief, who's played by Ed Lauter, who's always pretty good. Tarantino on the commentary recommends a movie with Ed Lauter called Lolly Madonna XXX, which I had never seen. I ended up watching, which has a really good cast itself. It's about like a hillbilly war, and it's got like Rod Steiger, Jeff Bridges, Gary Busey, Ed Lauter.
Interesting.
A few other people. Robert Ryan is the head of the other family that's not the Rod Steiger family. It's an okay movie, but Ed Lauter kind of steals the movie from all these more famous actors. Let's see, he gives them the go-ahead to do all this stuff, and they're going to have to call in IA because of Clarence's story that he got the cocaine from a dirty cop. And they're like, as long as we get credit for the bust, man. Oh, there's also a line here where he says, me and Nicholson, and he's like, Nicholson and I. But in the movie, they're both wrong. Right? The way it is, it would be Nicholson and me. But in the screenplay, when he corrects him, the line is actually, he's right to correct him. He says Nicholson and I, and it should be Nicholson and I. It's just that the way they say it in the movie is different from how it's written in the script. They've ad-libbed it in a way that now the grammar correction is incorrect. So both of their grammars are not right in this correction. And we went from, and then there's the fan in the background whirring the whole time when they're in there, which is realistic, but once again adds visual intensity to the scene in the police station. And then this is where we get one of the deleted scenes that was actually filmed. 2 scenes of Christopher Walken sending the mafia guys out after James Gandolfini, when James Gandolfini hasn't reported back, and we meet Kevin Corrigan for the first time. Have you seen these scenes?
I think they're on my DVD because I have the director's cut of the DVD. So I'm sure I watched them as part of what I like as part of the extras or something.
I can see in a way why they're cut, because they add nothing to the plot. You don't need to know why the other guys show up following the first guy to kill them. It's like you could just imagine if he found them, they'd send more people when he didn't show up. But the scenes are really good. I've just seeing Walken and all those good actors. Victor Argo actually has lines. I don't think he has any lines in the movie. And yeah, it's Kevin Corrigan, Victor Argo, and Frank Adonis. And you get the feeling no one liked Virgil very much, but he stood up once, like he didn't rat on them and went to prison. And Christopher Walken is like, yeah, anybody who does time like that and doesn't talk, he's okay with me no matter what I think about him personally. And then Kevin Corrigan suggests that maybe the guy that Virgil works with is double crossing him, and Victor Argo's like, how dare you say that about that guy? That guy's a really good guy. Then Christopher Walken hypothesizes that maybe Clarence got lucky again and killed Virgil, and he's like, he got rid of Drexel, and Drexel ain't no F word, and it's really a pretty good scene. It's like all them in tuxes at the wedding of Vincent Caccotti's son. I wish they'd left it in, because it's not that long of two cut scenes, and it really is pretty good. And then we get to Clarence tending to Alabama outside the airport while the planes go off. And I guess this is another thing ripped from the childhood of Tarantino. I think he might have lived by an airport in Detroit and thought about this, of like how he wished he could get away. I like that scene, but there is a line cut from that scene where he tells Alabama that everything's going to be okay because they're about to be inward rich.
Right.
Another guy's racial thing there.
Yeah.
Now we're at the big climax of the movie, where everybody starts showing up at the Beverly Ambassador Hotel, which is written as the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, which really exists. But I don't think there is a Beverly Ambassador. Oh, first we get where Dick Ritchie gets the part.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Before they go, there's a phone call. Floyd answers the phone, and Dick Ritchie gets the role in T.J. Hooker that he auditioned for. And I guess because of that, audition seems so humiliating. Him getting the part is really emotionally moving to me. Like it feels really good. Like it's like, oh, this is so sweet. I feel so good for him.
Yeah, like you're like genuinely happy for the guy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, all right. Yeah, it's like you've been wanting this for a while. Good for you, man. Good for you.
Yeah, and then there's a kind of a moment where it's like maybe he's about to tell him he doesn't want to go with them, and then he says nothing, and they go. So then they're all going to meet up at the hotel.
And the movie not Sal Rubinek. The hell's the guy's name? Yeah, Coming Home in a Body Bag.
Oh yes. They keep talking about coming home in a body bag, which I guess the joke was that it's a stand-in for Platoon, rather, more or less, in the mind of Tarantino.
Yeah.
Mid-80s big Vietnam movie from when the movie was written. And we get the hitmen getting ready to go to the hotel, and Frank Adonis calls Kevin Corrigan Mad Dog. In the script, his name is something else. Maybe Marty again. I can't remember. Maybe not. That seems too crazy to have multiple characters with the same name.
Yeah.
But he called him Mad Dog, I guess, because he looked like the real life Mad Dog Collier to Adonis, the killer that was once again featured in the movie Mobsters.
Nice.
And Corrigan does the "you talking to me" thing from Taxi Driver in the mirror, another Taxi Driver reference.
Yeah.
When the cops prep Elliot with the wire, I guess Pinchot improvised all of the Cub Scouts of America selling cocaine dialogue, which in the script was just dialogue from Romeo and Juliet, I believe. And this is the first time we see Michael Beach as the other cop.
Gotcha.
And they ride the Mustang to the thing, and we find out Alabama makes up that she got hit in the face in a basketball game to explain her beating.
And then from there, like everyone just kind of starts rolling into the hotel room, right? Or rolling to the hotel and then up to the room.
Yes, but
from there,
there's one kind of long dialogue exchange cut from outside the movie that is pretty key. Right before they go in, Slater says that he's really scared. Why don't they just leave? He doesn't need the money that bad. Let's just not go up there. And he's like, what if it's a trap? What if they're going to kill us or something? And they all kind of go back and forth about it. And Alabama says that she's okay just walking away. She doesn't need the money. And then at the last second, Slater says, no, I'll be kicking myself the rest of my life if I don't go up there. He's just a movie producer. I'm being crazy. Let's go. So then they go in and they meet Elliot, and we get the part in the elevator where he pulls out the gun, which is pretty crazy. And how cool are the mirrors in that elevator? I was like, man, I kind of want to go to wherever they shot this if that's a real elevator and not just a set.
Right.
Like, yeah, like that there's a lot of cool buildings and stuff in lots of cities, but yeah, that all the mirrors in that elevator looked sick. And yeah, Elliot breaks down and cries, and the the cops are debating whether or not they're about to kill Elliot in that elevator. And then finally Clarence lets him go. Oh, we have a crazy reference here. I think one of the craziest things in the movie is Clarence says, just like somebody, I swear to God, if I am wrong, I'll apologize. And that's the most, to me, obscure reference in the movie. And I guess it's off of an old series of detective books that became like a 1930 movie or something, early 30s movie about a detective whose catchphrase was, if I'm wrong, I'll apologize.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had no idea. That seems to be like the most obscure reference in the movie. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And it took me a minute to find it on Google, like who the heck he's talking about. Oh, Nick Carter. It's Nick Carter, Master Detective. And it was a 1939 movie called Nick Carter, Master Detective. But it was a book series. There we go. Then the hitmen go to Floyd and Dick's and talk to Floyd. And Floyd tells them exactly where to go find Clarence in Alabama.
Of course he did. Yeah.
I like before when Gandolfini's there, he's like, all right, I might be back. It's like, just in case he's lying. Yeah. I might be back. Clarence and Alabama and Dick meet Lee Donowitz, and we meet Monty, the bodyguard, who I guess he's one of our least famous people in it. He's the CEO in that elevator at the beginning of the movie Speed, of people that are about to get murdered in Speed by Dennis Hopper. And then we meet the guy who played Little John, and the dailies for Coming Home in a Body Bag are actually dailies from Platoon. We're Coming Home for a Body Bag 2.
That's right. That's the sequel.
Yeah, which I guess when he wrote the script, he couldn't know that Oliver Stone would do 2 more Vietnam movies.
That's true, yeah, because Platoon was 86, and then 4th of July was
89, I think.
89.
And then Heaven and Earth would have been 94, 95.
Yeah.
And this is where Clarence starts talking to him about Coming Home in a Body Bag and how much he liked it, and how he hated how he hates the normal movies that win Oscars. And he actually names in the script movies he hated, like Gandhi, Kramer versus Kramer. And I want to say in that period, they did have some stinkers. Like have you ever seen Out of Africa?
I've never seen that movie before.
I've
missed it along the way.
I've never seen Kramer versus Kramer or Gandhi either, honestly, but I did watch Out of Africa like half a year ago or something, and oh my gosh, it's unwatchable. It really is an unwatchable movie. Like he's talking, he calls them Out of Africa.
Out of Africa.
It's freaking terrible. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the most boring movie I ever saw, and I like it. I just like sometimes I don't mind a Merchant Ivory movie. I think he mentions the Merchant Ivory movies as being bad, but yeah, like I can hang with some of those, but not Out of Africa. Then when he lists like Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, that was a movie. Mad Max, that's a movie. Rio Bravo, that's a movie. He also says Rumblefish, that's a movie. They cut that. And Boris.
I wonder if they couldn't get the right. Like, do you have to have the rights to name just to name a movie?
I don't know if you do. I'm thinking maybe the reference was too obscure and dated. They just like screw it or something and cut it, or I don't know. That's a good question of why I didn't say Rumblefish. Like it is a less popular movie than those other 3. Then Lee Donowitz, and it has Boris making them coffee, which probably doesn't please Boris that much to be making Clarence and like these people coffee when he's holding an automatic rifle. And I was thinking, is Lee Donowitz too old to be mixing caffeine and cocaine? Should he maybe be laying off coffee and cocaine at the same time at his age?
Hard to tell. I mean, maybe he's been doing it for so long that that's just his day, morning. It's like that. That's just what he does.
It's just like. And it's uncut cocaine too, so probably get extra wound up. I don't know if like, that's a good question of like how much like does really good cocaine, like is it more speedy than bad cocaine? I don't know. Like if maybe you get less wound up from and just more euphoric off good cocaine. I don't know the difference really.
Yeah.
Donowitz also in the script offers them sandwich makings from Cantor's, which has been in a million movies, the Cantor's Diner on Fairfax. And he's got tons of sandwich stuff, but Clarence turns it down saying he has a tummy ache from eating at the Van Nuys Norms earlier that day. And Lee Donowitz is like, that's why I always eat at Lowry's. But I'll say personally, I love the Norms off La Cienega for like breakfast stuff. It's like, I love that place. I don't go that often because it's not like really close to my apartment in the grand scheme of things, or in the not very grand scheme of things, but I love that place for just its price point versus food quality on breakfast items. I think is quite good / selection. And it's also the one on La Cienega is the subject of a famous painting by an Oklahoman named Ed Ruska, where it's just like, it's on fire in this painting. It's called Norms on Fire.
I actually just saw the Ed Ruscha exhibit at the museum here in Oklahoma City.
Oh, wow.
Earlier this year. Yeah.
That's crazy. I saw an exhibit he did in like Texas. They had an exhibit of his stuff. I think the Norms on Fire painting might be at the Broad or LACMA here in LA full time. I'm not sure. Maybe they had it on tour at the exhibition you went to. So then we have the mob arrives at the hotel. Oh, look at that. There he is.
Yeah.
He's a handsome guy. Look at him. Looking cool.
Got that loyal hound next to him. Yeah.
And the cops bust in. Well, Clarence goes to the bathroom while Alabama's going to count the money. They make the drug deal for Dr. Zhivago, and the cops hear the money getting exchanged, so they decide to bust in. But Clarence goes to the bathroom and talks to the mentor again. And here, the cops, it becomes a standoff. Clarence is still in the bathroom. Long pee break. And then the mob shows up too in the door. And so then we have the three-way known as the Mexican Standoff, which was featured in, I guess, at least three, if not more, Tarantino scripts. And he talks out on the commentary that he was accused a lot of ripping it off of John Woo. But he pointed out, he's like, when I wrote this in 1986, I'd never seen a John Woo movie. In fact, I think some of the movies he's accused of ripping off didn't exist yet. So he's like, he says he saw it on an episode of like Policewoman or something. Fred Williamson or somebody called it, it's called something a Mexican Standoff. And that's when he got the idea. So he did not rip that off of John Woo. And then we have the big shootout and more cops arriving outside. One has a dare sticker, a nice message in this movie of the anti-cocaine.
Yeah.
And Clarence immediately gets shot in the eye when he comes out. And people just start getting dropped everywhere in this scene. Immediately, Tom Sizemore gets shot. This is another thing where you get the relationship with the cops, because when he gets shot, we don't know his first name until this point. Chris Penn's like, Cody! And in the script, in the movie, Dick runs out at some point, just throws a bunch of coke in the air and runs out of the thing and gets away alive. In the screenplay, this is different. In the screenplay, first he runs out, then Victor Argo follows him and chases him down to the elevator, and Dick's getting on the elevator, and Victor Argo rolls up on him with a shotgun, and Dick Ritchie's like, hey, whatever I did to you, man, I'm sorry, please don't kill me. And Victor Argo's like, lots of luck, kid, and lets him go. Then, to avoid cops, Dick Ritchie goes down to floor 4 and just starts trying hotel room doors to see if any of them are unlocked, which would be crazy because the doors are self-locking at a hotel. Like, they kind of self-close and self-lock, it feels like. They'll always shut you out. But at any rate, he eventually finds one, and it's a bunch of stewardesses doing aerobics from a TV tape, and none of them notice him sneak in. And it's like this crazy fantasy ending for Dick, where he ends up with like hot chicks in this hotel.
So he's trying all those doors. Meanwhile, like, has the shootout already begun at that point?
Yes. Oh yeah. He when he runs out of there, like, people are getting shot already, right?
That's right. Yeah. Because he runs out like just in a total panic.
Yeah, everybody gets killed here except for Alabama and in the movie, Clarence. But of course, the big other difference in the script and the movie is that Clarence dies in the script.
Interesting.
He dies here, and it was Tony Scott's idea to make him live. And he's like, I'm not doing this for a Hollywood thing. It's just like, I really like these kids, and I want to see them make it. And so the movie and script vary quite differently here, because he dies, and then Alabama blasts her way out. And she hears Clarence's lines earlier when he talks about her name, like, she's a blah, 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 coming at you, blah, blah, blah. It comes back on in her mind before she grabs this gun and she shoots Nicholson or Dines, whichever one Chris Penn is, and she shoots some other people. And Boris, I think in the movie, Chris Penn tells Boris to shut up and like maybe shoots him, maybe he doesn't, but Boris is still alive when she's getting out of there and wishes her luck as he's dying on the ground, and she says, thanks, Boris, or something like that, and runs out, and she gets away alone, which is kind of more believable than her getting away alone rather than with Clarence, because they were a couple, and he's all bleeding all over the place from his eye, and they don't get noticed because I think Frank Adonis is leading out some, like, he grabs like just a woman and is gonna like a maid or something and gets in a standoff with the cops so they don't see her and Clarence leaving. But in the script and in the Tarantino cut, she goes away she gets out by herself, and then she just in the movie goes from to them driving away, and then they're on a beach in Mexico, like in their dream, but they have a kid, and she talks about how life is sometimes shitty, but sometimes it goes the other way, and if he died that day, the only difference would be maybe that life would go on as much the same, but she might not have named their son Elvis. And we get the crazy little kid who is Patricia Arquette's real life son.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it was her actual kid.
And he's dressed in like a mini Clarence outfit.
Are they like wearing like the Hawaiian shirt or like the Hawaiian print?
Yeah, he's got like a weird short sleeve shirt melded into a hoodie thing like Clarence would wear. Some weird bad taste stuff once again. And Clarence has the eye patch.
Wherever this beach is, that all these characters in movies always end up. True Romance, Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, yeah.
The end of the town. Affleck down there hanging out.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen that, but I do recall it.
What if there's some sort of weird movie universe where they all just exist on this beach where the sun's always setting and there's little and they got away with the money.
They've got the money. That's right. So but the screenplay, instead of ending up like this, and that's the end of the movie, and I think we get some kind of song like at the end, some modern song. It ends with her she's driving off alone in the Mustang, and she's just cursing out Slater and kind of taunting him in her mind. She's like, you thought you were so big, it's like now you got nothing. I told you I was cool with just walking away, and now it's like you don't have me, you don't have the money, you don't even have a body anymore. You're dead. It's like I can have another man like that. I'm pretty. Blah, blah, blah. Then she just starts remembering stuff from earlier in the movie. She sees the "You're So Cool" napkin. And then she remembers talking to him and looking at him in the Heroes for Sale. And she remembers the Nick Fury comic, and she goes and she opens up like the trunk and she grabs the Nick Fury comic and her case of clothes and just leaves. I think she puts a gun in her mouth in the car. She pulls over and puts a gun in her mouth, not in the movie, but in the script, not in the Tarantino cut. But you see the rest of this stuff, except for the stuff about the comic book in the Tarantino cut, is that she puts the gun in her mouth and then she starts thinking about Clarence more and more, and she puts the gun down, grabs the comic book and the suitcase of her clothes and just starts hitting the road on foot. In the movie, in the end of the theatrical, or in the Tarantino cut ending, she's trying to hitch a ride in the end. And Tarantino says that he likes the Tony Scott ending because he's like, it adds a fairy tale quality. He's like, in a way, I think maybe the movie didn't earn Clarence dying. It would have been like, it might not have worked. He's like, I don't know, but it might not have worked. And I have to say, I never thought it would work. Like, I read the script years ago and I knew that the ending was supposed to be him dying, and I always thought that was stupid. I was like, man, that's too dark and cheesy for such a fanciful movie. Because the movie, well, being very gritty, is kind of like not realistic in a way. I wouldn't believe that all of this stuff would happen. It's like so much cocaine. It's so easy for them to kill people and stuff, and et cetera. Her getting away from Gandolfini just seems so unlikely. However, watching it, if you leave in the part where he thinks about leaving, the key is that they cut that thing where he talks about not going up there to the hotel room. If you left that in, it actually worked really well for me, the ending. I was like, wow, I think maybe they should have left both things in and he should have died. I never would have thought that I would be a True Romance truther, but apparently, apparently I am. I was like, yeah, that was kind of effective. Like the flashbacks and her first cursing him out and then deciding I was like, it's kind of more romantic even in a way. Like I was like, wow, like it really did kind of work for me. And the ending of the movie as we know it works for me too. But yeah, like, oh, and then one more thing there's a soundtrack note of what songs should be playing in the end. Credits in the screenplay. He recommends a song from 1968 called Little Arrows by a man named Leapy Lee. And I looked this song up, and it's a pretty badass song. I do recommend looking up this song Little Arrows by Leapy Lee.
Little Arrows. I'm gonna look it up right now.
I'm gonna pee while you do that.
All right.
Play that audio. All right.
Good tune, man.
Yeah, it took me a second to get into it. As many new songs you haven't heard before do. But like by the end, I was like, yeah, I really like that song, and it would have made a lot of sense at the end of the movie because it's kind of about, you know, Clarence got hit. A lot of people got shot up, but it's like about get little arrows everywhere, getting hit by these little arrows that hurt, but you like it.
Man. Oh, man.
Patricia Arquette's son, Enzo Rossi. All of the movie clips in the movie. You had Street Fighter, Better Tomorrow 2, Free Jack, which was also produced by James G. Robinson, Stay Tuned, which might have been James G. Robinson, I don't know, The Mac, a music video by Skinny Boys, a rap group called They Can't Get Enough, Skinny They Can't Get Enough. And then there was also a clip from the soap opera Santa Barbara and a commercial for a Bigfoot versus Snakebite monster truck rally. Beautiful. Then, okay, so we have, I also was thinking Clarence Worley is kind of a perfect representation of like an adult version of what would happen to his roles from all of his younger movies, where it's like he just ends up working in a comic book store. But I think that Slater would have found more ways to get laid than a hooker.
That's true. That's very true.
All right, that's the plot.
End spoilers.
Let's go to the Slater Rater. On a scale of 1 to 10.
Slater Rater, remind me of the categories again.
Oh, I will. Category 1, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you rate? How do you rate the movie True Romance?
I'm gonna go with an 8.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I could rewatch it over and over again. You can quote it. It's got, I think, well, as we've recapped here, pretty much, I think, damn near the best cast out of any film I've ever seen.
Man, I'm gonna give it a 10. I think this is like for all the reasons you just said. I think this is just an all-time classic action movie, endlessly rewatchable movie. Yeah, I watched it many times for this and loved it. I also think it's the best movie of the ones that Tarantino wrote and didn't direct. I also like From Dusk Till Dawn a lot, but yeah. And I think it's, other than Jackie Brown, Pulp Fiction, and Django Unchained, it's my favorite thing of movies he's written too.
Interesting.
Which I think those are all 10 out of 10 movies to me too. All 4 of those movies I love. And I like From Dusk.
I see, Django and Hateful Eight were the two, are really his only 2 that I didn't care for.
Oh wow, yeah, I really like Django Unchained. I'm a big westerns guy. I'll watch just about any western. Let's see. Then our second category is how do you rate on a scale of 1 to 10 Christian Slater's performance?
But the same. I think I'll go about an 8. 8 for the performance as well.
Wow, nice. I'm gonna go with a 10. I think that he's
Perfect
awesome in
so
the
far.
movie.
Yeah, perfect marks.
Then, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate the hunkiness?
Oh, full 10 for hunkiness.
Wow. I'm going to go with only a 4. I think that he looks good when we see his ass naked. He stayed in shape. He has the sex scene, so we've got to say it's kind of hunky. However, the haircut I think is terrible. I think the playing down of his prettiness really worked for. I think this is one of his least attractive movies. You know, we got to say he looks good naked, and then he has, with the eye patch at the end, he looks cool. That raises the hunkiness from probably a 2 to a 4 from me. And then now we have negative points on a scale of -0 to -10. How much more of Christian Slater would you have liked to have seen in the movie? -10 being you wanted a lot more of him.
I think it's just the right amount of Slater.
All right, that's a 0.
Yes. I'm going 0 on this one.
I agree. I'm also going to give it a 0.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else you had. He's damn near in every scene of the picture.
Yeah, he is. And it's an ensemble movie, but he is the lead. He holds it down. But I don't need any more of him in it.
Yeah. I'm going to go with 0 on that one.
That's a really good rating. I don't know if that's, we'll see if, I'll do the math on that. It's either an A or a B. I think the hunkiness brought it down a little from maybe it being an A. And that might be our highest rated Slater movie ever. That and Mobsters both got, I think, some pretty good ratings. And
Yeah, because you're pitching a perfect game with on the Slater Raiders so far until we got to the hunkiness.
That's right. And
thing.
I think you said that on the previous time you were on that you were going to give him a 10 on hunkiness, and you stayed true to that.
Yeah.
I was seeing if you would stay true. Let's see. So before we wrap up, are you reading anything right now? I always like to ask that.
Right now, I'm not, just because I started the new job about a month and a half ago, and I've been training ever since.
Oh yeah,
and it sounds bad. So the only thing I have been reading is, and this is very, very slowly I've been reading it, but a buddy of mine wrote a book and self-published it.
Oh wow, what's it called?
It's called Right Speech. It's called a Buddhist politician's guide to living.
Oh wow! Can we say the author's name?
Yeah. Colin Walkie.
Colin Walkie.
is his name, yeah.
Spell that for the
Yeah.
people at home.
Walkie, W-A-L-K-E. It's available on Amazon, and then local bookstores here in Oklahoma City. Paperback, and also Kindle version as well, if you're into that. But I've already read about half because he'd sent me, chapters and chunks as he was working on it, like in the spring. And so I'm just trying to finish that other part.
Yeah, and when you're training for a job, that's going to take up a lot of your mental energy. It really is.
Yeah. So I have been slacking on that department, but I should be catching up here in about a week and a half. Knock on wood. I should be wrapping up my training, so I have a little bit more free time in the evening.
Cool. I've been reading the Book of Numbers. Thank you for joining me. I think next time we're going to be looking with another special host, a 19-year-old film cineaste, or what a film enthusiast, I don't know how to pronounce that word, named Hunter. We're going to look at the movie The Wizard from 1989.
Bold. Again, it's been since the VHS days since I've seen The Wizard.